Why do good people suffer? I mean, really, it's one of the oldest, toughest questions there is. And for thousands of years, one story has been right at the heart of that whole conversation, the Book of Job. So today, we're going to dive into the first 5 chapters of this absolutely incredible story about faith, suffering, and what God is really like. So, here's our game plan. We're going to take this chapter by chapter. First, we'll meet Job and see his perfect life get put to the ultimate test. Then, things are going to get intensely personal. After that, we'll hear Job's own words after a week of just silence. And finally, we'll check out the first attempt by his friends to try and make sense of it all. All right, let's jump in. Our story starts in a place called Uz, with a guy who, seemingly has everything you could ever want. The Bible sets him up as the perfect model of faith, a standard that's about to be challenged in the most extreme way imaginable. So, who is this guy, Job? Well, the Bible doesn't hold back. It calls him blameless and upright, a man who feared God and stayed away from evil. And on top of that, he was just incredibly blessed. 10 kids, huge amounts of wealth. He was basically the biggest deal in the entire region. And this wasn't just a private faith. He was constantly making sacrifices for his kids just in case they messed up. By every single measure, this guy was the poster child for a righteous life. And this is where the story pulls back the curtain and we get this insane glimpse into the heavenly realm. You have God himself bragging about Job's faithfulness. But then Satan, the accuser, steps up and asks this really cynical question. Does Job fear God for nothing? He's basically arguing that Job's faith is just a business transaction. He makes a bet, take away all the good stuff, and Job will curse God to his face. And God in his sovereign power allows the test. And so it begins. So the bad news starts hitting, and it hits fast. One disaster right after another. First, a messenger comes running, barely alive, and says raiders have stolen all the oxen and donkeys and killed the servants. And before Job can even begin to process that, bam! Another messenger arrives. This time, it's something supernatural. What the messenger calls the fire of God came down and just incinerated all of his sheep and the shepherds. You can see how this is escalating, right? It's getting way more intense. And it is still not over. While that guy is still talking, a third one shows up. Another raiding party has made off with all 3,000 of his camels, a massive source of his wealth, and killed even more of his people. So in just a few moments, Job's entire fortune has been completely wiped out. And then comes the blow that is just unimaginable. A fourth messenger comes. He says that while all 10 of Job's children were having a meal together, a freak windstorm came out of nowhere, the house collapsed, and every single one of them was killed. The loss is now total. It's absolute, and it is devastatingly personal. So here we are, at the crucial moment. After losing absolutely everything, what does Job do? Well, he mourns deeply. He tears his robe, he shaves his head, but then he falls to the ground and he worships. And his words, "The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." I mean, that's one of the most powerful statements of faith you'll ever read. Satan's first test, it failed. Big time. Okay, on to chapter 2, where the trial just gets more intense. Attacking Job's family and his possessions didn't work, so now the test shifts. It's no longer about what Job has, it's about who Job is. It's about to get painfully personal. We're back in that heavenly court, and Satan basically doubles down. He says the first test wasn't enough. Skin for skin, he says, meaning a person will give up anything and everything to save their own life. He's insisting the real test is physical pain. If you attack Job's own body, then he'll crack. Then he'll curse God. And God allows this second test. So Job is hit with these awful, painful sores from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. His suffering is constant, it's humiliating, it's just physically unbearable. The image the Bible gives us of him sitting in a pile of ashes, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery, it's a picture of just total misery. And at this absolute low point, his own wife comes to him and tells him to just give up. Are you still holding on to your integrity? Just curse God and die. But Job's reply is just amazing. He asks her, should we accept only good from God and not trouble? And the text makes a point to say that even in all this, Job didn't sin in what he said. He's still holding on. What happens next is so powerful. Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they show up to comfort him. And when they see him, they're so shocked they don't even recognize him. They start weeping, they tear their clothes, and for 7 days and 7 nights, they just sit with him in the ashes, in total silence.
Honestly, it might be the most compassionate thing anyone does in the entire story, and it happens before anyone tries to give any advice.
So after a full week of silent support, the dam just breaks. In chapter 3, Job is the one who speaks first. And listen, he doesn't curse God, like Satan predicted, but he does curse the day he was born, and what follows is just a flood of raw, unfiltered anguish. His very first words are just filled with despair. He wishes his own existence could be wiped off the calendar. He wants the day he was born to just be swallowed by darkness, like it never even happened. Now, this isn't him turning against God. This is the honest cry of a soul in absolute agony.
Job just keeps going with these heart-wrenching questions. Why wasn't I stillborn? Why did I even survive? Just to face this unbelievable pain. He starts imagining how peaceful the grave must be, where he could finally rest. For Job, in this moment, death seems like a kindness, a merciful release.
What's so important to get here is that Job is giving us this powerful, honest example of how to lament. He's not bottling it up or pretending to be fine. He's questioning the very meaning of a life that's filled with this much pain. It's a deeply human response, and it's this raw honesty that opens the door for the huge debate that's about to happen. So, Job's cry of pain breaks that 7-day silence, and the first friend to speak up is Eliphaz. With his first words, the whole book shifts from being a story about suffering to a long philosophical debate about the reasons for suffering.
This one question right here, this is the core of Eliphaz's whole argument. He's basically saying, hey Job, think about it for a second. When has an innocent person ever been destroyed? When have good people ever been wiped out like this? The implication, of course, is that Job must have some secret sin to deserve all this.
So here's his logic broken down. 1. You reap what you sow. Bad people get bad things. 2. God is the one who punishes the wicked. 3. You, Job, are suffering terribly. Therefore, you must have sinned. It's a very neat, very tidy explanation for why people suffer. It's a worldview called retribution theology. In chapter 5, Eliphaz keeps talking, but he kind of softens his tone a little bit. He starts to frame Job's suffering not just as punishment, but as a kind of loving discipline from God, for his own good. And here's his core piece of advice. He actually tells Job that he should be happy that God is correcting him. Don't despise the chastening of the Almighty, he says. He argues that, God wounds, but he also heals. And Eliphaz promises that if Job just repents and takes the correction, God will give him everything back. And this leaves us with the huge question that's going to drive the rest of the book. Eliphaz offers a simple, logical explanation, but we know from the beginning of the story that he's wrong. So it forces us to ask ourselves, when you're facing that kind of deep, mysterious pain, is a simple but wrong answer more comforting? Or is it actually more harmful than just having to wrestle with the silence of not knowing why?